Today I'm going to predict things for the Monster Hunter Wilds DLC and give you a list of monsters that I would like to see in the DLC. The major expansion has finally been announced and enough people have already analyzed it, so I'm not gonna do that. The DLC is called Ascendance. I bet the devs were thinking, we need to prevent performance issues this time, but the only way would be to delete the environment and that would leave us with nothing but a skybox. Exactly. Alright, now that we know how they chose this theme, onto my predictions. First, it's pretty obvious that people expect Valstrax. I expect this too, mostly due to this new monster's moveset. It looks so much like Valstrax, he's probably gonna be in here. It could be a different subspecies though, I'm not sure. It also looks like the new boost bracer moves are very much inspired by Valstrax, so I wouldn't be surprised to see that you possibly only unlock this after defeating him. Then, this is obviously Lao Shanglong, and he was honestly one of the most boring fights before in Generations Ultimate, although his first appearance was even further back, but I'm sure they'll rework it all to make it a bit more interesting. So I'm curious to see exactly how they plan to do that. I definitely expect another one-hit kill move. Then we saw Kushala Daora, everyone's favorite, am I right? Yeah, I hope he's nothing like the one in Monster Hunter World. You could barely hit that guy, but it makes sense that he's here due to the theme. It's Ascendance, we're going up. I also predict that Shagaru Magala will be in the DLC because Gore Magala is already in the game, and Shagaru is just such an obvious choice. Shagaru Magala could also be used well for the story. Then they will have more Guardian monsters, and I think this mostly because of the logo. I used to think that this was an egg, but I think it refers to the Guardian monsters that come from these egg-looking things. And it seems to be lighting up in this logo, so yeah, many more Guardian monsters, probably. Then we got new moves announced besides the boost bracer ones, and I hope and also think that we'll get switch skills, similar to what we had in Rise, which means that we'll get to customize our moveset a little bit, which would be really nice. Now, onto my monster wish list. Number 10, Monoblos. We only have one monster that can dig in the desert, so I wanted another one. And even though he doesn't really fit well in the DLC, Lao Shanglong also doesn't seem to fit very well with the Ascendance vibe either, so I'm just gonna list whichever monster I would like to see. At first I thought about Diablos or Black Diablos, but it's been so long since we saw Monoblos that I think it's about time. I also think that this entry could be interchangeable with Nibblesnarf. That guy's pretty cool too. Number 9, Tetsukabra. I think this one could have really cool subspecies, like a snow version that smacks big snow clumps around instead of rocks. Tetsukabra was last seen in Generations Ultimate and is rather underrated. I hope we get to see him again sometime. Number 8, Malfastio. If we're gonna have a lot of birds because we're ascending into the sky, then this guy is a must. And since we now have a dynamic day and night cycle, we have the perfect excuse to add Malfastio, an owl monster. This guy has some really cool moves. He could make you fall asleep and confuse you, reversing your controls. Bring him back, this guy's too interesting and underrated. Number 7, Najarala. It has been too long since we've seen a serpent-like creature. Najarala was unique and that alone is enough reason to bring him back. This guy could paralyze you with his fangs and used spikes to hit you from a distance like a sonic bomb. We need more snake monsters like this. Number 6, Gobble. We have not seen this monster since 3 Ultimate, and since underwater combat is a thing in Wilds, well, sort of, then this monster would be really cool to see again. And he's basically a lanternfish and baits you by pretending to be a plant while being dug into the ground underwater. Number 5, Astalos. Kinda fits with the theme of the DLC, and I just really like the design of this monster. We have last seen him in Rise, so perhaps it's too soon for him to return, but if they'll need another thunder monster, this one would be cool, although they'll probably pick Zinogre over Astalos as he's everyone's favorite. Number 4, Devil Joe. I don't think I have to explain this one. Devil Joe is an all-time favorite, and he wasn't in Rise or Sunbreak, and as much as I would like to see this pickle again, I actually think it's unlikely. I would love to see him eating all the flying monsters though. It would be pretty cool to see him walking around with those in his mouth. Number 3, Abyssal Lagiacrus, Ivory Lagiacrus, or Flying Lagiacrus from Frontier. This would be relatively easy to implement since Lagiacrus is already in the game. Ivory would be the easiest since he only fights on land and is almost just a color change, but it is also the least interesting of the bunch. Abyssal Lagiacrus is a bit unlikely to happen due to the fact that his whole fight was underwater, so I also don't see this one happening. The Flying Lagiacrus in Frontier was cool. I call him Flying Lagiacrus, but his actual name was Shantian, so I suppose it's not really a Lagiacrus. But look at this guy, he looks like a Lagiacrus, doesn't he? And a fight like this from an airship in the sky against a monster would be super interesting. But since Frontier is such a big difference from the regular series, I also don't see this happening in Wilds, leaving Ivory as the only option that I see actually happening, but any of these 3 would be cool. Number 2, Kurupeko. I will never stop giving this bird praise. Its gimmick was so cool. It could mimic other monster screams and then summon them by doing this. This made it always interesting to fight Kurupeko, as it was always kinda random who would show up. He would also fit into the theme of the DLC, and we haven't fought this guy since 3 Ultimate. It's about time we see him again. Number 1, Dalamador. If Wilds take so much inspiration from 4 Ultimate, then why not bring back the most badass monster from that game? Not only would it be cool, it would make sense. It would be amazing to see this guy in HD, as you're about the size of its claw, and even though he might not be a flying creature, due to its sheer size, he could reach the sky anyways. Please make this happen. It seems like in the trailer we get to see what looks like a big mountain in the background, so perhaps he's coming back, as he used to always be on a big mountain in 4 Ultimate. Now, those were the monsters I would like to see, but since the expansions usually have around 20 new monsters, here is what I predict to see instead. First of all, more Elder Dragons. This has kinda always been the case in G rank, or Master rank as they like to call it now, so I predict that Nergigante, for example, will make a return, together with Teostra and Kirin. There's a real chance for Dalamador, so besides the fact that I really want one, I can actually see this happening, but maybe only added later like they did with Elatrion or Fatalis in World. It would also be cool to see Yam Moran or Dara Moran return, but the chances of that happening aren't as high, as this is more of a siege fight and it would take a lot more effort to implement. I also think that people wouldn't like these fights as much unless they get a rework. I love them though. Then I think we'll get to see Quetzalcoatl again, together with Yiangaruga, Keizu, Tigrex, Tetsukabra, and then some subspecies like Azuratalos, Pink Raytheon, Emerald Kongolala, Black Gravios, Shrouded Nersilla maybe, probably also a bunch of Guardian versions, and maybe even a Chaotic Gormagala. I also predict one more pack monster, maybe one of the Jaggies. Sounds pretty cool, but also kind of painful to fight. And at least 2 more completely new monsters. But we'll have to wait and see. If the theme of the DLC is anything to go by, then we might need a lot of wind resistance. But it looks cool, and I'm excited to see what they'll add. Let me know what you predict they will do in this DLC. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, and thanks for watching.